Ludum Dare. Theme deeper and deeper. You heard about this mine, that there's great wealth to be had, but also many people do not come back. What got to them remains a mystery. Some say they heard strange noises just before they bailed out. Those were probably the lucky ones. Are you one of them? Or will the creatures get to you? With a strange feeling, you swing your pickaxe and start your descent. Dangerous Mine is my submission to the 4 days Ludum Dare game jam. There is the jam, which goes for 72 hours, but I participated in a combo which is 48 hours and you must work alone. I was actually quite lucky with the winning theme. The day before I already thought long and hard about it, despite not knowing it would be the winning one. So after waking up and learning about the theme, I already knew what I wanted to make. I scribbled down my ideas to have a list of things to do, and then I created my Unity project. The first thing I implemented was the tile-based world. I didn't actually think about this in the jam, but it ended up being quite similar to Terraria. I chose to divide the world up into chunks so I could more easily load and unload parts of the map to improve performance. I also thought about generating custom meshes for chunks so there would only be one game object per chunk, but I decided against it. In my experience, implementing custom mesh generation is quite tedious and time consuming, and so for a game jam not something that is worth it. If I would develop this again in a commercial game, I would have implemented this. As my next step, I implemented the player. Now getting 2D movement to feel right is a pain, especially if you should interact with physics objects naturally. Normally there are quite a few tricks in 2D character controllers like YOD time, so you can also jump a split second after you leave a platform, or input buffering so that you can press the jump button before the player actually reaches the ground and he waits until he touched the ground to jump again. But because this is Ludum Dare, you always end up with a half-baked solution. It's fine for the job, but doesn't feel particularly great. There are some edge cases where it kind of breaks. Sometimes he moves way too fast, sometimes too slow. Sometimes he gets stuck in the ground or sticks to walls. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong here. It took me quite a bit of fiddling with those values to get something decent. As the next step, I implemented mining. Now because of my previous work on the chunk system, this was quite easy. While it still is a botched job, it worked quite nicely. The main thing that is quite hacky here is how I update the displayed chunk. I just add them to a list that the chunk renderer then goes through and regenerates the visuals for. Now I got to the inventory. This is also the start of the inventory controller class, which quite quickly outgrew its intended use. In the end, it handled a lot of stuff apart from inventory management. Now here I created the UI for the inventory. As a general tip, I can say that doing UI work always takes way longer than expected. I probably worked on UI for half of my jam time. There are just so many things to consider. In the inventory panel, for example, on the left side is a grid view of all your items that you currently own. This list needs to be populated, then each element of the grid needs to display the right image, then they need to be selectable and so many more things. On the right side you need to display the properties of the selector tool and manage all kinds of other things as well. In my data design of tools I also made a fatal mistake which haunted me the next day when I tried to implement durability of tools, but more on that later. Now I'm also implementing the tool wheel so you can quickly switch between your tools. Like all UI work, this also took quite a while, but I'm actually quite happy with the result. It is quite easy to use. Now as the first day was nearing its end, I realized my game was still missing main components. So shortly before the end of day 1, I created the game's first and only enemy, the spider. The AI of the spider is really simple, it just jumps towards the player. If the player touches the spider, it also loses its control and tumbles for a few seconds. I did this by releasing the rigid body's rotation constraint. In the first day, I also squeezed the creation of the bow and arrow in. This was the first weapon in the game the player has at his disposal. I also implemented the arrows sticking in things that they hit. I think it looks quite funny with the spiders. In code, I just parent the arrows to the spider. Now day 2 starts, and I start off by finishing the implementation of the spider, by giving it health and the ability to die. Then my focus changed to the world. It still looks quite bland and there is nothing to collect. So I change up the world generation and add gold to dig and caves to find. For that I just used the Unity provided purling noise function. I also implemented that more gold spawns the lower you are. I implemented this by changing the spawning threshold according to the height of the tile. Here you can see me experimenting with different spawning thresholds until I found a good one. Now you should also be able to collect them. So I did the utmost overcomplicated thing and modeled a 3D coin to display for dropped gold and in the UI. It looks really cool, but wasn't really worth it. Texturing a normal Unity cube would probably have been faster. And here I implement tools breaking and discovering my fatal flaw in my tool data design. In my data design, I implemented tools and inventory tools. Tools contain the general data of the tools like the name, price, damage, recharge time, starting durability and visuals, while the inventory tool contains the data of each individual tool object, so the individual durability of each tool. This enables the player to have multiple tools of the same type with different durability values. Now my mistake was that I didn't implement IDs for the inventory tool. That meant that I used the index of the inventory tool from the list of all player inventory tools. If I now delete an inventory tool from the list, all other tools shifted in the array and no IDs lined up anymore and everything broke. My quick solution to this problem was to just keep broken tools in the list and just check if the tool is broken before using it. Now on to the last critical thing missing from my game. How do you actually obtain these tools? The answer is shops. These shops are generated in the world and there you can stock up on tools. Now I originally planned for shops deeper down to sell better tools, but I didn't have enough time to implement enough tools for that to make sense. Now the tools are still some bit restricted to dev by their higher price, but if you wanted, you could also just buy them from the shop at the very top if you grinded hard enough. The generation of shops was also a bit tricky, but with some clever math involving modulo, I figured out a solution. Now the next thing that took quite a while is actually the UI of the shop. To save some time there, I copied the UI of the inventory panel and just changed stuff around. Now something I almost forgot is the ability to die. Now in the beginning I planned to destroy the player and after respawning creating a new one, but because the player now holds so much important data, I decided to just disable the sprite renderer of the player and after respawning enabling it again. Now everything important was implemented and I focused on the smaller things. I created a particle system for various things like monsters dying, the player dying and tiles breaking. I also recorded audio effects for some things like collecting coins or shooting arrows. One other thing I did was to add a nice font to the game to make it visually more appealing. But while making the audio, something bad happened. It's not going well. And it works. Now as you can see, I only have 4 hours left, so this will be kind of close, but I think I can do it. So let's power through this. I was lucky and my computer started again as normal and no work was lost. But that's also the time I realized. Currently, my game only has one weapon. While technically there is also a laser item, it doesn't actually do anything because I never implemented it. So I got onto that. I used the line renderer to make a laser beam and used the raycast to determine what it hit. If it is a monster, I destroy it. That's also the time I got tempted to implement another tool. I had the idea of bombs in my head for quite a while now, so I've gone for it. In the end, implementing bombs didn't actually take that long. For most of it, I was able to just copy the code from the bow and arrow tool. And with that, I exported my game, filled out my Ludum Dare entry, published it and went to bed. Now in retrospect, this idea was way too big for Ludum Dare. I coded so much in those 2 days and it was quite exhausting. The graphics don't look particularly great and there are not that many tools and only one type of monster. While this idea has potential, I think, it would need a greater variety of monsters at varying strengths and more tools. For the next Ludum Dare, I will try to do something smaller again. Then I can polish it more and I think create a game that is more fun. If you want to play my Ludum Dare game, I'll leave a link to it in the video description. Otherwise, see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.